Hello guys and girls, welcome to a special video. Today we are going to interview Roland Barcia. Roland Barcia is the Worldwide Director for Containers, Serverless and Integrations at AWS. Roland is a former IBM Fellow, has written 5 books, has multiple patents, written over 50 articles and has a master's degree from NJIT. He has presented in prestigious conferences like KubeCon, reInvent and more. After working with him in multiple projects, I could say that he is no joke. Roland has tight grasp on both technology and strategy. He goes in with intense focus and customer obsession to solve difficult challenges. Now, somehow miraculously, I am humbled to call him a coworker and friend. Roland, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Raj. That was a very kind intro. You're probably saying a lot nicer things. Half of that stuff is true.
No, almost everything is true. Looking at your track record and also working with you. So I'll let you introduce yourself if you want to add something else.
Yeah, so that was a great introduction. I would add that, particularly at AWS, we're part of the Worldwide Specialist Organization. And so I have a great team of specialist solution architects that focus on helping our customers modernize integration. You're one of these solution architects that are part of our worldwide team. So I have the pleasure to work with folks like you, experts in the field. So thank you for having me.
Excellent. Thanks for
Yeah.
coming. So first question I have is you are engaged in multiple critical projects as the worldwide director. How do you prioritize those projects? How do you manage your time?
Yeah, time is a valuable asset. We don't have enough of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I won't say it's perfect all the time, but I would say there's a few things that I tend to think about. Is one, and I actually put it as trusting my people, right? Because obviously I can't be everywhere all the time.
Right.
And so I put a lot of focus on one, building and mentoring the team, on how to think strategically as a mechanism of scale. So one, trust people and teach them on how to think strategically and use kind of those technical things. Two, I would say have a schedule. I think I heard you say this once on your channel,
Yeah.
actually, right? Which I believe this to be true, but make it somewhat flexible in that there's probably some non-negotiables,
Right.
and then there's areas of flexibility where you have churn. So that's two. The other thing I would add is um, think about the customer first. So, like, if there's a customer that has a critical situation, I'm going to jump in and prioritize those things, but also focus in on reinventing and learning as well.
Gotcha. On the same note, you handle both serverless and container. So how do you juggle those two? How do you keep up?
Yeah. Um, Sometimes those two are mutually exclusive, right? Meaning we have, I would say, a range of different customers from enterprises to startups. We have customers that go all in on AWS. We have customers that maybe use AWS, other clouds, and on-prem, and they pick different strategies for different reasons. And so I try to understand the big picture of why they do what they do. Go deep maybe in a couple areas. Like right now, I'm pretty focused on AI ML patterns across serverless and Kubernetes because I'm seeing a lot of challenges with our customers around just data problems that I think are the next phase of modernization. Um, I always make it a habit, like Saturday morning cartoons. If you remember as a kid, my Saturday mornings is like my personal learning time,
Okay.
if my family lets me. But, my kids are older, they sleep late.
Right.
People sleep late. I have a Hispanic culture. Everyone sleeps late. So I get up early in the morning, and that's like my personal education. So I try to teach myself something new every Saturday morning as well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What is your biggest tip to architects and aspiring solutions architects? How do they get into the field? Like how do they navigate being an architect?
I would say one, I went to a customer last week, and the initial driver is like, hey, Roland, come in, talk to us about modernization strategy. And the conversation very much pivoted around a specific problem they had. I'm not going to get into the problem, but it had a lot to do with their data,
Mm-hmm.
right? And how do I make the most use of their data? And very quickly, I took a step back and I can say, oh, do you know how to do GitOps with Kubernetes? You know how to use Argo CD to provision native resources? No,
Mm-hmm.
it was a discussion around you have data here, data needs to be over there. Before
Mm-hmm.
it gets there, I need to do certain things to it.
Mm-hmm.
And these things came in naturally. So the lesson is one,
Mm-hmm.
learn to solution
Mm-hmm.
and learn patterns, and then pull in where the technology fits. And I think having that mentality, that solutioning mentality, is much more important than knowing like 20 technologies really well.
Mm-hmm.
Where do these technologies fit in, and what problems do they solve? Um, I'd say second, get hands on with a few of these
Mm-hmm.
technologies, and learn a couple of them and understand who touches it. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm very persona driven. So what does an architect do? What does a developer do? What does a platform
Right,
engineer or a
right.
DevOps person do? And
That's your
how do they?
favorite
Yeah,
question.
yeah. How
Yes.
do they interact with the system? What does an observability engineer, if that's a role,
Mm-hmm.
SRE do?
Right.
Right? How do they observe a system? Like, what are their touch points and how do they use it?
Okay. Yeah, and also I will add keep reinventing yourself because you can be a say of particular technology A and B. It doesn't mean that you cannot be a say of some other technology that's coming down the line, right? You always have to
Yeah,
be learn and be
that's
curious.
that learn and be curious is obviously one of the leadership principles here at Amazon, and I'm always telling folks that reinvent yourself, continuously learn. This is why here I am, a serverless containers compute person,
Right.
and I've talked to you about AI ML, and
Right.
I've talked to you about patterns with data, because those are the use cases, and that's like the next trend of reinvention. Maybe, hey, let me get deeper into writing, Jupyter notebooks,
Mm-hmm.
or using different languages like Rust or R to, learn and say how do those technologies work, and often one technology serves as a bridge to the other.
Mm-hmm.
Learn
Mm-hmm.
to kind of read these signals and reinvent yourself around those things.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, that to me is one of the biggest tip for solutions architects. On the same note, since you are a technology leader, what technology trends do you foresee dominating next 5 years?
Yeah, those
Well, I'm
those
gonna check with you after 5 years.
yeah, though I've had that question asked a lot, and
Yeah.
like most of the time you're going to be wrong. Let's just there's always disruptive.
Yes.
It's easy right now to say generative AI.
Yeah.
I think AI has actually been around for a while.
Right.
I foresee usually with there's a hype curve,
Yes.
right? And then after the hype curve goes down, there's always some residue
Yes.
of technology left over. So like there was a hype curve with Web3 a few
Yeah.
years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
NFTs. Like at the end of the day, like the residue of that is I still think there's going to be, you know, transactions that are managed by a blockchain
Mm-hmm.
and data records being unverifiable. How do I know that I'm talking to the real Raj,
Right.
not some virtual
I'm just
Raj?
a
Like,
hologram.
and so there'll be like real use cases versus like trading NFTs.
Mm-hmm.
Same type of thing with generative AI. Like, you know, you're going to see a hype curve for a while, and then people start really, how can I really use this to improve people's lives?
Right.
And that kind of drives innovation as well. um, I always say like, we have this serverless, like we've been talking about serverless for a long time.
Okay.
I think serverless adoption
Mm-hmm.
will increase. We go through cycles, and I know you've lived through some of this with your mainframe background
Right.
and
Yeah.
reinventing yourself as a
Yes.
cloud architect,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Which is host platform, distributed objects. I did a lot of Corba and EJBs,
Right.
and then it became fat middleware, and
Mm-hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
and web services and ESBs, and then it became REST services,
Right.
then microservices, everything distributed, orchestration platforms bringing it together,
Right.
right? And then it's like platform teams building platforms, and then all of a sudden it's going to get torn apart. Like,
Yeah.
I'd love to figure out where that sweet spot is
Mm.
of like distributed versus centralized, and where does that, how do we solve that cycle?
Mm-hmm.
And I think serverless has a lot of potential there with
Okay.
that.
Any comment about Kubernetes?
Yeah, I mean, Kubernetes, I've spent the last like 5, 6, 7 years actually working in some fashion in
Yeah.
Kubernetes, right? When I was at IBM, working with OpenShift, working now with EKS,
Mm-hmm.
and working with containers. And I think Kubernetes is, I think, if it's driving anything, it's really driving infrastructure as code, like for the full stack. So like it really brings in not just um, code for the developers, but really trends like GitOps, right? And pull based CI/CD like
Right.
GitOps, reconciliation, drift detection. Like Kubernetes, I think, is driving a lot of great thinking around declarative systems, infrastructure as code, and new styles of automation that are pull based that can scale differently.
Right.
And I think that, Kubernetes in itself, I think will continue to kind of drive those type of innovations, and the CNCF just tons of choice.
Right.
And I think Kubernetes is going to be here for a while.
Right.
And it's going to be, a core platform that many people base things on. I do think that we'll see Kubernetes living with other things side by side. As
Right.
you see like Web3 stacks and blockchain and data AI ML and all of these things as well.
Yeah, I think Kubernetes as a platform will grow rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
I anticipate that some of the pains will go away. It will be more abstracted.
Yeah.
Right, the upgrade pain or managing different components together. I think there will be more packaged or more solutions.
Yeah, and we're starting to see like there's like operators, Helm, and cross-plane compositions.
Yeah.
Like all these technologies are trying to figure out how to group related tasks together
Yeah.
and do it as infrastructure as code. A lot of them are like also about Kubernetes, like it's abstracted APIs that they've had the benefit of learning from cloud.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And now doing it in a kind of abstracted way across different disparate environments, which is pretty cool.
Cool. So now, folks, you know what to learn for the next 5 years. Talking about Kubernetes now feels like an ocean, right? Like so much things are coming up, things getting deprecated from one version to another, new concepts coming up. If someone who is starting today to learn Kubernetes, how do they navigate this?
It's impossible.
It's impossible.
I would say that, if I'm new to Kubernetes, I would say, get Kubernetes certified. That's probably like if you do CKAD and CKA, like you'll learn the basics, right? So like deployments, services, ingress, and security. Like I always think app mod domains are universal. So like DevOps, automation, observability, security, networking, and how does it apply? So put a framework around that.
Yeah.
So if you see then you take that as app mod and explode it out like asynchronous, messaging, streaming, like there's these broad categories. And if you look at the CNCF map, there's thousands of projects, but there's big buckets, right?
Yeah.
And I would say pick a slice through the stack,
right,
and create a solution.
Okay.
And see where the streams are. It's like write a streaming application, write a web application, write a mobile app, write like these high level that yourself, deploy it, and then automate it, and then observe it, because you only build something once.
Right.
And oftentimes what happens is people build platforms, they move to the next job,
right,
and then someone else maintains it. So I always tell a person, operate it for a month, see how it looks, make an upgrade, look at the stats, observe your costs, like take a slice through it, and then figure out like, is there a CNCF project or a native service? Like sometimes I've seen people use Kubernetes and use things like Crossplane or AWS controllers to provision, but actually use like a Postgres managed database with RDS or DynamoDB, and they mix. How easy is it to get from a cluster to that? So pick a slice through each of the categories and try to build a solution together.
Okay, that makes sense. One thing I personally struggle with is there are so many hands-on projects out there. It's almost impossible. So I try to do like one big hands-on project and try to attach as much as possible, rather than trying to go find all the GitHub repo for all these different projects.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Regarding that, we just talked about the CNCF tools. Same challenge there, thousands of tools for the folks who are just starting out. Any specific tools or set of tools that they should focus on?
And I say CNCF and broader Kubernetes ecosystem of open source tools. I'm always looking at what's the problem of the day. Like this year, it's cost optimization. How do I manage costs with the economy? And so projects like Carpenter are really exciting because of the ability to scale worker nodes, use different machine types, use ARM-based architectures like Graviton, use compute models like Spot, which is spare capacity.
Yeah.
And so like Carpenter is pretty exciting. In that same vein, I've always talked to you about like I really like Kata,
Right.
and I think
Yes.
event-driven architecture is important. On the AWS side, we have things like EventBridge and Lambda that's really good at it. In the Kubernetes side, we have customers who are like, I still want to do event-driven architecture. How do I scale down to 0 pods?
Right.
And projects like Kata to me and the way they plug into different services is pretty interesting. I think there's a lot of different like services that are pretty cool around validating if clusters are secure, and those type of scanning stuff as well that
I
are
see.
out there. I think those are exciting as well.
Like OPAC, Hyvan,
Yeah,
those projects.
yeah. And
Okay.
so those projects I think are pretty exciting because like people are now trying to productionalize things. Whereas
Yeah.
early days of Kubernetes was a lot about building new apps
Right.
and things like that. Now people are really trying to scale, do multi-tenancy. Obviously, we have a project called EKS Blueprints,
Yeah. Amazing project.
which is
Yeah.
uses either Terraform or CDK to bring together some of these different CNCF projects into different blueprints or solutions that we've seen with different customers. So my team's been working on that. We're pretty excited about that
That's pretty
project
awesome
as well.
project.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. That's really good answer. All right. So now I'm gonna ask you some rapid fire questions,
no.
Roland.
I'm nervous.
Yeah. So you should be.
Okay.
Roland has not seen these questions before. All right. Here we go.
Yeah.
Favorite movie of all time?
Oh, man, favorite movie of all time. I was not expecting. I like a bunch of movies.
Yeah.
Probably like The Empire Strikes Back. I like The Godfather. I like The Count of Monte Cristo
Okay.
as well. I like The Green Mile. I always cried during the execution
Okay.
of sadness. So like, I like those movies. They're pretty good.
I didn't know you were a Star Wars guy. Okay. Next
Yeah.
time we're gonna chat about Star Wars.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. If you could eat one food for rest of your life, what would it be?
Lobster.
Lobster. Okay.
And Maine lobster, like the cold water lobsters with the claws.
With the
Like,
claws.
Yeah, I love lobster.
Okay. Next question. Favorite technology?
Favorite technology?
Yeah, it could be anything. Yeah.
I would have to say right now it's AWS. Like just because I've been like so integrated into it. Yeah, I would say that kind of
AWS.
stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Fair.
Yeah.
Fair. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Like superpower, read people's minds.
Read people's minds. Okay. Read customers' minds. Okay.
Yeah.
If you can meet someone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Jesus.
Jesus. Okay. Beach or mountain?
Beach.
Yeah, I know
Cubano.
that. Cubano. Okay. Windows or Mac?
Mac.
Okay. All right. Xbox or PlayStation?
PlayStation.
All right. Favorite place to travel to?
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've never been to Cuba. My whole family's from Cuba. And so I longed to visit it just because I was born in New Jersey. I have a lot of family in Miami. My parents, my wife was born in Cuba. So I've never been to Cuba, but I would say Hawaii is the favorite place I've been to.
Okay.
Which is pretty awesome.
And Hawaii is the place you've been to, but Cuba is some place that you want to go.
That's right. Just for my roots. Yeah.
Okay. That's beautiful. Okay. What are you most proud of?
My family, my daughters, my wife, like my boys, I would say like it's too much to count. I mean, both my daughters recently graduated from college. They're both doing well, so I'm really just proud of that. I would say like I'm proud of our team. Like I think I'm probably in a point in my career where like whenever I see people succeed, I'm like really happy. So I would say like that, but like proud of my family. My wife's my best friend. She rocks. Like just awesomeness there.
Excellent. Last question. This one I know, probably a lot of you know as well. Favorite music band?
Tool. Tool. There's only Tool.
Only Tool. Roland is a Tool fanatic. Any conference or any talk where we have opportunity to plug in a music. Roland is always plugging in Tool. I am getting into Tool now. I'm listening to some of their songs during gym. Pretty cool stuff. All right. So last question, Roland. How can people connect with you? How can people get more of you?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I would say the most. It's Roland Barcia
I'll give all the links in
AWS.
description.
And so LinkedIn, send me messages. I'm on Twitter too. I would say I read Twitter and I post from LinkedIn to Twitter. So
Yeah.
um, and so I would say LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to find me.
Okay, excellent. Any other parting words for the viewers?
I would say keep learning, be empathetic towards other people and what they need. Oftentimes being customer focused is also being people focused, just caring about people, caring about solving problems. Like I want to use technologies to solve like very interesting problems to help people, right? Like, and I would just say be empathetic.
Okay. That's an excellent message to end this video with. Thank you, Roland, for coming.
Yeah.
All right.